Okay, so today we're going to work on adding and subtracting rational expressions. Remember, this is what we did like last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in class. In order to add or subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator. And this is where we work to find that least common denominator. Now, if you'll look at definitely, at least what I can see on the screen here, the first 6 problems on your worksheet all have the same denominator. So on here, I don't think we really had any like this in class, so they're going to start us out easy. We already have a common denominator. So my least common denominator for number 1 is going to be that 8v. And so remember, since they both got the least common denominator, we're going to either add or subtract our numerators and put it over that common denominator. So I'm going to take my u minus v, and I'm going to put it in parentheses because it goes together in parentheses. They're super glued. And then I had a plus, and then I have 6u minus 3v, again, goes together in a parentheses, all over the common denominator of 8v. And so when we go to work this, we don't really need that first parenthesis. There's nothing in front, or you could say there's a 1 there and distribute it. So that would give you u minus v. And then we're going to take this positive and we're going to distribute it. And remember, it's the same thing as like a positive 1. And so 1 times 6u is positive 6u. And 1 times negative 3v is going to be a negative 3v. And it's all over that least common denominator. So then we can combine our like terms. We've got u plus 6u, which is 7u, and then we got negative v minus 3v, which is negative 4v, and it's all over the least common denominator there. Now, I can't combine anything else in my numerator. I can't do anything to my denominator. So we'll check in the numerator though and make sure, can you common factor? You cannot common factor. It has 2 terms, but it's not, and it's a difference, but it's not a difference of squares or cubes. So this would be our answer. And so basically that's what you're going to do on like 2 through 6. Now on 6, let's go ahead, let's look at 4. Let's look at 4. So even though they have a least common denominator that's the same, we still need to factor those because it is a possibility that maybe something will cancel at the end. So let's go ahead and factor that. So even though we know that that least common denominator is 10n squared plus 16n plus 6, let's work on factoring that out. So it does have a greatest common factor actually. Our greatest common factor is 2. So when I take a 2 out of this, I have 5n squared plus 8n plus 3. Now when I check what's inside the parentheses, it has no greatest common factor. It's 3 terms. It's an alien. So this 2 here is still going to be part of our answer. So actually I'm going to bring it down further than that. I'm just going to rewrite it down here. Alright, so remember, our alien woman has to go on vacation. She kisses the man goodbye and she's gone. She's gone, and they multiply. Simple trinomial. You're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to, let me change colors there, multiply to 15 and add to 8. So multiply to 15, add to 8. Okay, 1 times 15, 2 doesn't go into it, 3 times 5, those add to 8. Bigger number first, bring down the first sign. Positive 5 times what kind of 3 gives me that positive 15? Well, it's going to be positive. But it's an alien, so remember, you got to bring her back. He's mad. They divide. Reduce if possible. So n plus 5 over 5 is 1. And then 3 over 5 doesn't reduce, so we're going to throw her in front of the n. So 5n plus 3. So my least common denominator in factored form is going to be 2 times n plus 1 times the 5n plus 3. What I have right down here at the bottom. Now the reason I did that is because there is the possibility that something could cancel after I combine my numerators. So let's try this. So since my least common denominator, I'm going to write it above it. This is probably one, guys, you're going to need to do on a separate sheet of paper, because there's no way you're going to be able to write everything you need to write here, so that I can give you even partial credit if you missed it and let it be legible for me. Alright, so we said this factored out was 2 times n plus 1, times 5n plus 3. Alright, so we're going to combine our numerators. So I have this 5 by itself, plus, and then n minus 6 is together, over that least common denominator. And I'm just putting the one that's in factored form. And then we're going to distribute that plus sign right there. Remember, that's a negative 6. So then that's the same as a positive 1 that we're distributing. So we have 5 plus n minus 6 over our least common denominator. And then we can combine like terms. So we got 5 minus 6, which is negative 1, plus n over our least common denominator. And then since all of my parentheses have n at the beginning, let's switch the numerator. So we have a negative 1 and a positive n. So I'm going to just switch the order. So I'm going to put my positive n first, my negative 1 second, over that least common denominator. Alright, so I can't do anything else to my numerator. It has no greatest common factors. 2 terms is a difference, but it's not squares or cubes. I can't do anything to my denominator because I already factored it out completely. So can I cancel anything on top and bottom? I cannot. We have an n minus 1 on top, but it's an n plus 1 on bottom. So therefore, this is all that we can do. So there's our answer.